Hello, everyone. This is Black Red Redemption, also known as Black Red Guard. Again, back again, I'm sorry, with some bullshit that's been going down in in the land of the not so free. So, first and most troubling, we have basically a like a SWAT team coming in to torment and arrest um, people who were involved with a local solidarity bail fund in Atlanta. Now, keep in mind, Atlanta is a city run almost entirely by Democrats. Okay, so and then you see him going in like this is how you would come if there was an armed robber or a serial killer or some other type of horrible person um, that had sequestered themselves in a building. Like, this is not how you come for people who are not charged with anything violent. So very troubling. And this is just like a taste of the repression that is in store for for people's activists this year, because we're obviously going to have another long hot summer. I mean, let's look at the shit that's been going down. You had the Jordan Neely case that happened in New York City, where a guy was literally choked to death in front of a subway car full of commuters. And you also had this. Um, a 14-year-old boy was murdered in Columbia, South Carolina by Rick Chow. He owned a Shell gas station on Park Lane Road in Columbia. He chased Cyrus Belton out of the store around 8 p.m. on Sunday and shot him. Like, he chased this kid, 14-year-old kid, younger than Mike Brown. He ran this kid out of the store and he shot this kid. Like, who does that? The owner suspected Carmack Belton of shoplifting inside the store. Okay, shoplifting is not a case for summary execution. There was a similar case. This helped kick off the '92 riots in L.A. There was a young girl named Latasha Harlins. She supposedly stole an orange juice, and she had money in her hand to pay for the orange juice. Tupac actually mentions her in a one of his cuts. So the police are saying that this guy's a fucking liar. He did not this kid did not steal anything. And surprising for the police, they condemned Mr. Chow regardless, even if he had shoplifted 4 bottles of water, which is what he initially took out of the cooler and then he put them back. Even if he'd done that, that is not something you shoot anybody over, much less a 14-year-old, but you just don't do that. At one point, there was a verbal confrontation inside the store. So my guess is that this store owner did not like being confronted by a 14-year-old kid, because obviously we know that this guy, he had words with him. He was like, "Oh, yeah, you stealing from my store?" And he was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" So this guy, this petty bourgeois small business owner ego kicked in, and he decided that he was going to pull out his pistol, threaten the kid, and then chase him out of the store, and then shoot him off premises. So, fucky. And the people did not take this lying down. They rose up in defense of their brother, and they trashed the store on Monday. According to the Richland County Sheriff's Department, a crowd of this people was dispersed from the Shell gas station on Park Lane Road after peaceful protests turned destructive. It always kills me with this peaceful protest shit. Like, is the murder of a 14-year-old boy peaceful? Like, how do you respond to a kid who did nothing wrong having his young life taken by an asshole? So, of course, you're going to go in and you're going to do all this stuff. You're going to trash the store. And keep in mind also that there's a contradiction between majority non-black business owners in black neighborhoods. Like, that pisses people off. Like, not only do you own these petty markets in our neighborhoods, but you treat us like shit, you curse us out, you accuse us of stealing, and then you kill us. So that contradiction is something that's been around for a long time. Matter of fact, in my city, St. Louis, there was an Arab American gas station owner, I believe it was Palestinian, that abused and talked very grimy to a black woman, if I recall correctly, and his store ended up trashed. And there were concessions extracted. He agreed to donate some money to a local charity or some shit like that. But anyways, like, this is the type of shit that contributes to the phenomenon in the 60s that we knew as long hot summers, meaning you have the masses rising up in rebellion against the fact that they're being treated like shit. Like, people can only take and tolerate so much, and enough's enough. The video here.
Live from Columbia, this is WIS News 10 at 6. Live, local, now.
A Columbia convenience store owner charged with murder tonight after the shooting death of a 14-year-old boy. Richland County deputies say that Rick Chow, who owns a Shell gas station near Park Lane Road in Columbia, chased Cyrus Belton from his store last night after suspecting him of shoplifting. That incident happened, according to deputies, at about 8 p.m. on Sunday night. Investigators say Chow shot the boy in the back just down the road off the convenience store property on Spring Tree Drive.
Nick Neville's joining us. And Nick, there had been some protesters out there during the day. Tell us what the scene is now on Park Lane Road there in front of that convenience store.
Dondi and Judy, so community activists and advocates against gun violence hadn't been out here all day, really all afternoon. That crowd has dwindled some. There's also a sign on the door of this gas station that says, "We're closed for Memorial Day. Sorry for the inconvenience." Now, throughout the day, multiple people came by. At one point, Richland County Coroner Nada Rutherford provided an update to this crowd shortly after 3 o'clock, and there was loud applause from the crowd when Chow's charge was announced.
It's senseless. It doesn't make sense.
Richland County Sheriff Leon Lott describing the murder of 14-year-old Cyrus Belton outside a Shell gas station on Park Lane Road Sunday night. The store's owner, Rick Chow, has been charged in the killing.
It's just sad. It's sad. If y'all would have seen that baby's name right there, that's all I can see. All I can see.
The owner suspected Cyrus of shoplifting inside the store, which RCSD has said did not happen.
Regardless, even if he had shoplifted 4 bottles of water, which is what he initially took out of the cooler, and then he put them back. Even if he'd done that, that's not something you shoot anybody over, much less a 14-year-old, but you just don't do that.
At one point, there was a verbal confrontation inside the store, but no indication that things turned physical. Cyrus was running away when he was shot. The coroner's office says he had 1 gunshot wound to the right lower back. Deputies recovered a gun believed to belong to the victim near his body. RCSD says there's no evidence he pointed it at or.
In these types of cases, it's always like, that's why we should really not trust the bourgeois, the ruling class news. Because like that, like, what the fuck does the kid having a gun have to do with the fact that he was murdered? And yeah, it's cool that they said, yeah, he didn't point it at Chow, but like, why is that relevant? And like, people plant shit, like cops plant shit. They know that if they don't spin the story to be like, okay, this kid was no angel, like every time that a black person is killed by a non-black person in a situation that could potentially become explosive, they always have to bring up the fact that, oh, they had a gun, or they were charged with fucking trespassing once when they were 13, or they have a juvenile record. Like, we never see them do this when victims of incidents like this are non-black, and that's another thing that contributes to black distrust of the media. Like, they always try to portray us as horrible people, as people that are deserving of mistreatment, up to and including summary execution. So back to what I originally wanted to talk about. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation, like, I just recently discovered that a lot of states have like literal counterparts to the FBI. So the GBI, along with the Atlanta Police Department, have arrested 3 people on charges stemming from the ongoing investigation of individuals responsible for numerous criminal acts at the future site. They keep talking about this thing as if it's going to be built. Like, there is so much mass pushback. Like, there's so much opposition. That's the word I was looking for. From the masses to the presence of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, also known as Cop City, and other Metro Atlanta locations. Marlon Scott Kautz, age 39 of Atlanta, Georgia, Savannah D. Peterson, age 30 of Savannah, Georgia, and Adele McClain, age 42 of Atlanta, Georgia, were all charged today with money laundering and charity fraud. Agents and officers executed a search warrant and found evidence linking the 3 suspects to the financial crimes. All 3 charged will be booked into a local jail and will have a bond hearing scheduled soon. This case is being jointly prosecuted by the Georgia Attorney General's Office and the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office. So basically, okay, for every action, there is a reaction, and the GBI and the Atlanta Police Department and all of these other pig agencies, they're already upset because of the fact that they got caught with egg on their face after murdering an activist in the Willani forest. If you don't know anything about it, like, there's opposition to the building of this site because it would fuck up a local environmental preserve, like a virgin forest that is being destroyed for cop shit. And a lot of environmental activists, they opposed this. So they were doing tree sits, they had an encampment out there, all sorts of stuff. And the police have been fucking with them, destroying their water, taking away food, harassing people that came to bring them supplies, because this is very common amongst environmental activists. More power to them. They put their bodies on the line to prevent the destruction of virgin forests and other aspects of nature that the police and developers and other such people are trying to destroy for their own aggrandizement, for their own profit. So you have a state rep, Sarah Draper, that is deeply concerned about the raid directed by the Georgia Attorney General's office today in Edgewood, a dense and thriving residential neighborhood in Atlanta. So this was obviously early in the morning, and this is what they're doing. Like, okay, charity fraud and money laundering. Like, are these people in the fucking mafia? Like, are these cartel people? Are they major big time dope dealers? No, they're a group of environmental activists and solidarity activists that are running a fund to help keep people out of jail. And you have this guy, Brian Kemp, who put out a statement. For months, law enforcement on the state and local level have worked diligently to secure the site of Cop City. I'm not going to call it the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center because, for one, that's a mouthful, and 2, this is exactly what it is. It is Cop City. In the face of violence from mostly out-of-state activists. If I recall correctly, the 3 people that they arrested today were all from Georgia. They came to harass police officers and civilians, choosing destruction over legitimate protest. Okay, how do we define a legitimate protest? Like, why would you ask the ruling class what is legitimate and acceptable? The only way that gains have been gotten in this shithole of a country has been through methods of protest and revolt that the ruling class, people like Kemp, do not call legitimate. If the state is calling you legitimate, then you're doing something wrong. Anyways, let's see what else Pig Kemp has to say. Thanks to our brave law enforcement, many of them have already been arrested, and today we're proud to share that those who backed their illegal actions are also under arrest and will face justice. These criminals facilitated and encouraged domestic terrorism. Keep an eye out for it. That word. Like, they're already exposing what they intend to do. If you, in any way, shape, or form, break the acceptable box that they've reserved for public discourse in this country, you will be labeled a domestic terrorist and hit with charges that can get you 20 years in prison. Check this out. Activists faced felonies for distributing flyers on Cop City protester killing. The activist faced 20 years in prison for handing out flyers that identified a cop they said was linked to the killing of a protester in the Atlanta forest. So, 20 fucking years. Like, that's what you give people for bank robbery. That's what you give people for armed robbery. That's what you give people for fucking manslaughter. Handing out flyers will possibly garner 20 years in prison now. 3 activists involved in the Defend Atlanta Forest movement are facing charges of felony intimidation of an officer of the state and misdemeanor stalking for placing flyers on mailboxes in a neighborhood in Bartow County, Georgia, about 40 miles from Atlanta. So, okay. First of all, why does a cop that is policing and beating the shit out of and arresting people in a city 40 miles from where they live, like, why is that officer allowed to be like, why are you allowed to police a neighborhood that you don't live in? Like, that was one of the major campaigns of the original Black Panther Party. Like, the police, if they continue to exist, most of us would prefer that they don't exist. But, like, there is a major movement for community control of police. Like, we want people who actually live in our neighborhoods, who grew up in our neighborhoods, who know these kids walking around the street, who know all of the drunks, who know all of the people who are unfortunately are addicted to drugs, who know the people. If we're going to have anybody walking around our neighborhood with a badge and a gun, they should at least be one of us. That was what the Black Panther Party supported. So you've got this guy that's already fucking up because he's 40, he's patrolling a community he doesn't give a shit about. He doesn't live there. Anyways, the flyer, according to the lawyer, named a police officer who lives in the area where the activists were arrested and alleged he was connected to the killing in January of forest defender Manuel Tortuguita Terran during a multi-agency raid on the Atlanta forest protest encampment. A forensics report from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation about guns fired during Tortuguita's killing named 6 state patrol officers: Bryland Myers, Jerry Parrish, Jonathan Salcedo, Mark Jonathan Lamb, Ronaldo Cagle, and Royce Zah. According to the public records, one of the officers named lives in the area where the activists posted flyers. The report was obtained by Atlanta Community Press Collective, an abolitionist nonprofit media group, through an open records request. Julia DuPois, an activist named Charlie, who asked that their last name be withheld for security concerns, and an activist named Wednesday were arrested at a gas station outside the town of Cartersville on Friday. According to their lawyer, Lyra Foster, the activists drove once through the neighborhoods and placed flyers on numerous mailboxes without exiting their vehicle or approaching any residents. Foster said Wednesday was a passenger in the car and not posting flyers. So again, like, what exactly morally or ethically did these people do wrong? If there's a guy in your neighborhood who's a murderer, who killed an unarmed person, who was out there because he was putting his body on the line for what he believed in, and he shot this dude or helped murder this dude, your neighbors deserve to know about that. Like, this is fascist harassment and repression. That's all. And the activists themselves said that they had no intention to intimidate the officer. Like, how do you intimidate somebody who is able to murder you under color of law? Like, how can this person be intimidated? Like, they're playing with us. Like, how can you intimidate somebody that has the power to murder, the legal power to murder, and get away with it, just as they've done. Like they shot this dude who was not doing anything besides sitting on the ground with his hands up, and they murdered him. And they're not going to ever face any legal repercussions for it because the law does not care about normal, average, everyday people like you and me. The law cares about protecting its cronies, its stooges, its police. So these people are never going to face any repercussions. They know it, we know it. So what these activists were doing was trying to distribute flyers to let them know, hey, you got this guy in your neighborhood, and if you feel some type of way about that, you might want to have a chat with them. And here they are, facing 20 years in prison. So they shot this dude 57 times. Tortuguita. He was 26 years old. Shot at least 57 times when police stormed the protest encampment. Again, a non-violent, peaceful protest encampment. The type of protest encampment that they tell us we should establish. They were not out there trashing anything. These are environmentalists, for fuck's sake. They picked up all their trash. They were better stewards of this nature reserve, the Welaunee Forest, than the fucking cops will be. Repressive policing has escalated in recent months against the movement to stop a $90 million police training center, Cop City, from being built on top of Atlanta's forest. 42 movement participants currently face state domestic terrorism charges. Again, that fucking word. So they're already showing us what they're going to do. They're going to, if you in any way fly outside the boundaries of what they have established for us, you're going to be labeled a domestic terrorist. See, what they've done is they've learned from 2014, they've learned from 2017, they've learned from 2020, and they pay attention to movements that are going on in other countries. Like, they do their homework, they do their research. They sit, they read articles, they've read our books, they've read our theory, and now they're establishing their strategy and their tactics for how they're going to respond. Just give everybody blanket domestic terrorism charges. It doesn't matter if all you did was help somebody put gas in their car. You are now a domestic terrorist. You are now aiding and abetting and harboring criminals. Never mind the fact that most of these left movements have never fired a shot in anger at anybody. It doesn't matter. You're still a terrorist. So that's their move. And again, we're moving towards another long, hot summer because this shit is coming. One after another. Like, okay, you've had this kid murdered at a gas station in Columbia, South Carolina. You had Daniel Penny choke Jordan Neely to death on camera in a subway full of commuters. You have the ongoing Cop City harassment. You have the mass uprising and struggle against Cop City because, like, nobody, no regular person in Atlanta wants this. Okay? It's the Democratic Uncle Toms and the Klan, like Kemp, and the pigs who want this. And they're trying to foist this deal down the throats of Atlanta's people. And like every time they do like these open town forums and question and answer sessions, every time 100% from the people, opposition. Nobody wants this. And that's further proof that this is not a democracy. Like, I was under the impression, I was taught in my high school and middle school civics classes that if the people don't want something, that thing is not done. But if you read American history, like Vietnam, nobody wanted fucking Vietnam. Nobody wanted Korea. Nobody wanted fucking Panama and Grenada. Both Iraq wars were opposed. Like, there was a several 100,000 person march, might have been even in the millions, that opposed the invasion of Iraq in 2003. But it happened anyway. Why? Because this is not a democracy. Like, if you talk to any honest bourgeois, if you talk to any honest ruling class representative or person, like, they will tell you, like, no, you don't run shit here. We run shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you read their books and you study what they have to say, they don't care what normal people think. They care what the people who pay them think. And they care about what's best for their bank accounts, for their stock portfolios, and what's best for their continued dominance of the commanding heights of the economy and their commanding, like, their command of political influence and power in this country. Like, we don't run shit. So what else have we got? Atlanta Solidarity Fund. This is who the arrestees were affiliated with. They did good work. We've got your back. If you're targeted for protesting Cop City and ATL, we can help with getting bailed out, access to a good lawyer, getting to and from court, loss or damage from police violence, suing the police for violating your rights. We need your help. This work can only happen because of donations from people who believe in solidarity. Contribute online, host a fundraiser event, become a monthly donor, spread the word. So anybody who's been active in any type of movement knows that bail funds and solidarity funds are essential. Like without them, you're going to be sitting in jail. Like they're going to stack bail on top of you. They're going to stack charges up on you. And you're going to be sitting in jail until until whenever, until fucking trial. So this work is very important. And that's another reason why the police targeted it. They figured that if they could take this down, if they could hit the Atlanta Solidarity Fund and other bail funds that are essential for maintaining this movement, then their notion is that the movement will stop. See, these are not dumb people. They recognize that movements require infrastructure. It's not always just people sitting in front of a tree. It's not always people marching in the streets or smashing out windows. It's lawyers. It's people donate money. It's people ensuring that this money gets to where it needs to go. It's people getting people out of jail. It's people providing mutual aid, food, water, whatever the fuck else they need. So that's why when the cops trashed the encampment, that's why they cut the water bottles. That's why they trashed the food. That's why they were harassing people and turning back cars. They're trying to bring them stuff. They're trying to starve us out. Like that's why they have a military mindset. Like when you put a place under siege, you don't just sit outside the walls, okay? You don't just sit around outside with your guns and shit. You have to stop them from actually getting the resources that they need to be able to continue the siege. So they're approaching this from a military angle. And keep in mind, these are the people that you and I pay taxes to support. Yet they're treating us as if we're enemies. They're behaving as if we're enemies. They have an antagonistic contradiction with us because they want something. We don't want them to have it. So they're not going to negotiate. When the ruling class negotiates, it's either to stall or because they've been made to surrender. So what these people are doing is demonstrating to their fascist buddies, because they all talk to each other, okay? They're demonstrating to their fascist buddies that this is how you do this. The Department of Homeland Security has added Stop Cop City protesters to its list of terrorism threats facing the U.S., and our senators, Reverend Warnock and Ossoff, have said nothing. We're constituents, and they're calling us terrorists. Check this out. So this is essentially, this was issued May 24th, 2023. The United States remains in a heightened threat environment. Lone offenders and small groups motivated by a range of ideological beliefs and personal grievances continue to pose a persistent and lethal threat to the homeland. Both DVEs, domestic violent extremists, and those associated with foreign terrorist organizations continue to attempt to motivate supporters to conduct attacks in the homeland. Okay, not a single left organization has been implicated in planning a terrorist attack or any other type of harmful activity, okay? For all of our rhetoric, like the left in this country is very tame and it's relatively nonviolent. Like, I guess we can call the main line, the commanding line in our movement, militant reformism. Like, okay, yeah, a window might get busted out every now and then, or a cop car might be overturned and set on fire, but like, leftists in this country are not killers, okay? That's the right wing, most of which has ties to cops. In the coming months, factors that can mobilize individuals to commit violence include their perceptions of the 2024 general election cycle and legislative or judicial decisions pertaining to socio-political issues. Again, the only people killing in regards to elections or socio-political issues are reactionary, are rightists. These people are Nazis or radical Trump supporters who have shitloads of guns and are willing to use. Like leftists are not doing anything like that. Okay? Doing. What else? In May 2023, a now deceased individual killed 8 and injured 7 others at an outlet mall in Allen, Texas. Law enforcement continues to investigate the motive behind the attack, but initial reporting suggests the attacker fixated on mass shootings and held views consistent with racially or ethnically motivated violent extremist, RMVE, and he was a fucking incel. So, yeah, not one of ours. And they covered this up for so long, but the shooter had a swastika and SS bolts, if I recall correctly, tattooed on him. And this was not one of ours. A now deceased individual shot and killed 6 people at a Christian elementary school. I remember when the rightists and fascists were mauling about that because the individual happened to be transgender. And they tried to attribute this to all trans people. Like, what the fuck? So, again, RMVEs, racially motivated violent extremists. So, yeah. And again, they know that they don't want another 2020, okay? And it's interesting, like, how Democrats versus Republicans respond to this shit. Like, Republicans are just gonna fucking crush you. They don't care. But Democrats, they're getting to that level too. Like, before, they were apt on just like, okay, we're gonna co-opt, we're going to offer the most opportunist elements some money. Like, we don't give a fuck. But now, they're learning from the right wing. They're becoming rightists. And they are realizing that if they don't give credence to the beliefs by many rightists, even just by doing nothing, then they're going to see their agendas fucking fucked with. So, because Democrats are ultimately spineless cowards, they're just going to give the Republicans whatever they want, and they're going to learn from their supposed enemies. They're not enemies. These people golf and go out and run up $10,000 bar tabs together, just like prosecutors and defense attorneys. Anyways, their supposed political opposition, their supposed enemies, if they don't act like them, then they're going to be outflanked, and they're eventually going to be kicked out of office, and the Republicans are going to win. So, keep an eye on Atlanta. Keep an eye on Florida, because these two states are, like, these states are the vanguard of right-wing reaction in this country. And the Midwest, the West, the Northeast, they're learning from these two states. They're learning how far they can push the envelope and what they can do. And then you also have this coming up. The debt deal has fucked over student loan borrowers. Of course, I doubt many of us actually even intend to pay these fucking things off. But so the Supreme Court still has the plan to erase up to $20,000 in debt by borrower. That's probably not going to pass because the Supreme Court is, again, rightist. The right wing has a majority on the court now. So when do we have to repay? 60 days after June 30th. If the legislation passes, that means all federal student loan borrowers will be expected to start making payments again after August 29th. The loans will also accrue interest. And this looks like it will be the end. The debt deal prohibits the education secretary from extending the pause on federal student loan payments without congressional approval. So they already know that we cannot afford this shit, but they're pushing it through anyway. So most of our generation, millennials and Zoomers, refuse to be debt slaves. We just don't give a fuck. So they're fucking themselves. And the thing is, they can afford to just, be like, you know what, fuck all of it. We're wiping it clean. You don't owe us shit. But they're so, these people are simultaneously like really smart and really dumb. Like, they have enough money to forgive all of the debt and continue doing stupid shit like sending weapons and money to Ukraine and funding the cops. Like, they have money to forgive our debt. But they don't care because there's no real movement, there's no real pressure to get them to do so. So, are we fucked? Not necessarily. It depends on what we do. If we do nothing, if we just react to shit, then yeah, we're fucked. But if we actually study what's happening and develop institutions that are capable of struggling against this shit, then no, we're not fucked. They're fucked. So, fuck or be fucked. Such is the way of the world. I'm Black Red Yard.